things you're going to learn about your research in DNA, family trees, and all that. So you 4 people who are on time, hopefully we get more people in. If they don't, no worries. I've had large groups, I've had small groups. It's all good to me. I'm an adoptee. I was told at age 7 that I was adopted. I had no idea what that meant before I, until I got older, but I was told that I was loved twice, which I thought was cool. And I started at 18 getting paperwork from my mother about my adoption. One was an adoption decree page, and one was a hospital record from my birth in a hospital in Miami. And they both had my mother's biological mother's name, or natural mother, as they put it, as Rose Becker. So I started looking for a Rose Becker who were under the assumption she was young, possibly Orthodox Jewish from New York or New York area. So I joined a group called ALMA after my daughter was born in '97, and they taught me how to go to the library and look up indexes for birth and death records, marriage information, microfiche, microfilm, and doing all the research that I didn't have, honestly, because I didn't have an online encyclopedia at my fingertips. And I found no Rose Beckers that fit the criteria I needed to know that she was my biological mother. So then I turned to a group called Florida Adoption Reunion Registry that I had signed up with. And they finally got back in touch with me and told me, the only thing we can tell you is that your biological mother was 38 at your birth and from a Midwestern state starting with the letter I. So now I'm, again, back on the trail, right? A Rose Becker, born between 1927-28, in Illinois, Iowa, Indiana, and Idaho. So that totally made my work even harder, because now I have 4 states, the same name, and a different year. So I start looking, and the same thing happened. I didn't find what I was looking for. I made phone calls. No, that isn't me. Good luck. Thank you. I'm sorry, that's not me. One looked promising because she started asking questions, which is never really happens. And that turned out to be a bust also. So finally, when Ancestry became more popular and the testing came down, I says, all right, I actually was going to get a private eye that does genealogy through the Dr. Phil show called The Locators, and they wanted $1,000. And I'm like, I'm not spending $1,000 right now. I don't have it. So I did Ancestry DNA. I did 23andMe, and I found no Beckers. All the way down to like 5th to 8th cousin, I found Beckers, but nobody close. If she's my biological mother, she would be at the top, not at the bottom. So I got in touch with a gentleman named Norman, who happened to be a 1st to 2nd cousin match. His wife was a big genealogist, and she says, well, you seem to be part of the family because your DNA connection. It's high enough that we know you're from the family, but we don't know how. So she gave me the address of a woman named Judy in Miami, and I wrote her a letter, and she didn't answer me, but 3 days later, a woman named Susan called me and said, Judy is my maternal half-sister. I go, great. I tell her my story pretty much just as I told you now, and she agreed to do an ancestry DNA test. So 6 weeks later, I had not 1, but 2 half-sisters and the true name of my biological mother. Obviously, she used an alias, Bella Fira, born 1927 in Chicago, Illinois. So there's the Midwestern state, starting with the letter I, which I had figured out already pretty much before. 95% of all my relatives I found online on Ancestry and 23andMe all come from Chicago. So I ended up with 7 half-siblings, 6 who are alive, 2 that don't want to talk to me, a biological father that doesn't want to talk to me, a deceased biological mother in '03, so I didn't get to meet her. But DNA was the key, okay? Now, I don't promote one DNA testing company over another. If you want to ask questions at the end of the presentation, you can verbally do that. If you have any questions in between and you want to put them in the chat window, put them in the chat window, and then we'll read them out. Let me see if you gave me screen share. Awesome, I got that. So I'm going to go over 4 of the major DNA testing companies. We had a couple of people drop out. They might have had a bad connection. but I'm going over 4 DNA testing companies. If you DNA tested already with one, that's fine. There are ways to move your DNA around. I'm going to go over that. I'm going to go over costs. I'm going to go over some of the things I do like, some of the things I don't like. And everybody should make their own decision on what they're going to use based on what they can learn online about the companies, their privacy policies, their terms of service, what they charge. So I always leave it up to you. But if you want to ask me based on a circumstance, what might be better for you, I can always give you a suggestion that might help you. So let me start my slides. I know everybody can see me, everybody can hear me. We're just going to make sure that you guys can see that screen. A thumbs up will do. Awesome, I got that. I'm going to get rid of the video panel, which we don't need, and the floating bar at the bottom, so I have full view. So DNA testing companies, I call it pros, cons, costs, and features, featuring these 4 major DNA testing companies, and I'm sure most of you have heard of at least one, if not 2 of them. And I start off with a little terminology first, because not everybody knows everything. So DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, is a long molecule that contains our unique genetic code. Like a recipe book, it holds the instructions for making all of the proteins in our bodies. Your genome is made of a chemical called deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA for short. The complete encyclopedia, the complete set of DNA makes up your genome, your complete encyclopedia of life. It makes your eyes blue or brown and your body tall or short. So why do we use DNA for genealogy nowadays? Years ago, we didn't have it, so we didn't use it, but it's an important step to help you learn who your family are. We use DNA testing to find and analyze DNA matches to unknown, to understand the family unit we are part of, and to find out about unknown ancestry and heritage. In today's modern world, and through scientific breakthroughs, there are several companies that offer DNA testing. These tests usually are done by you submitting a sample of your saliva, which contains your DNA, or a mouth swab that collects DNA material from inside your cheek. The most popular DNA testing companies are Ancestry.dna, 23andMe, MyHeritage, and Living DNA, Family Tree DNA. I didn't take out, I took Living DNA out of this group, this presentation, mainly because they're very small. I didn't like really their results. I had very little to do with it. It is an option for DNA testing, so I can talk about it when we have the discussion. So these companies provide what's called autosomal DNA tests. Not all provide testing for Y-DNA or mitochondrial DNA. So there is differences, so I'll go over them. Autosomal DNA tests trace a person's autosomal chromosomes. The first 22 of 23 chromosomes are called autosomes, and they contain the segments of DNA the person shares with everyone to whom they are related, maternally and paternally, both directly and indirectly. Mitochondrial DNA tests trace people's matrilineal lines, the mother's line of ancestry, through their mitochondria, which are passed from mothers to their children. Since everyone has mitochondria, both males and females can take mtDNA tests. Because Y chromosomes are passed from father to son virtually unchanged, males can trace their patrilineal lines, the male lines of ancestry, by testing their Y chromosome. Since women do not have Y chromosomes, they cannot take the Y DNA tests, though their brother, father, paternal uncle, and paternal grandfather could. What is a centimorgan? A little more terminology. It's important in DNA, so it's a good thing to learn. A centimorgan is just a fancy word that geneticists use to describe the length of a DNA segment. It's a measuring tool, specifically the difference between chromosome positions. We inherit DNA on each chromosome from each parent, and we will share segments of genetic material described as DNA segments of varying sizes with our relatives. The distance between the location on the chromosome where the shared DNA segment starts to the point of where it ends is measured in centimorgans. What is a segment? So a DNA segment is a block, chunk, piece, string of DNA on a chromosome. It is typically determined by a start location and an end location. I use segments to determine if DNA matches are linked together by the same segments of DNA that they share. One of the tools I want everybody to learn about today, if you're going to do a DNA testing, is a site called DNA Painter. Now, this is separate from the DNA testing sites. DNA Painter is a site that will help you understand more about centimorgans and how you might be related to somebody based on how many centimorgans you share with a person. There is a chart and a way for you to enter the amount of centimorgans that come up as your matches come up on your DNA testing. Here I entered 1,915 centimorgans I share with my paternal half-sister. And as you can see, it'll give you a probability based on information that people learned over time of the percentage of a chance of how that person is related to you. Here it shows that 100% chance of it being a grandparent-grandchild match, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew match, or a half-sibling match. Because there is a range of centimorgans within each category of relationship, except for parent-child, and most of the time sibling, others might not be able to tell you exactly how you're related to somebody on the DNA testing that you do. There's a range, so you could be related to them in many different ways. Now, my paternal sister and I, Linda, are only 11 years apart. That would make a grandparent-grandchild relationship impossible. We both do not have known biological full siblings that would make us an aunt, uncle, or a niece-nephew match, leaving only half-sibling. It first said that we were a first cousin, close family to first cousin match, which I'll show you. And we believed us to be first cousins. So we started looking for our most common recent ancestor, which would have been a grandparent. That too didn't make sense, leaving only half-sibling, which he was very thrilled about. And this is a chart that accompanies it. It comes from a site called the Shared Centimorgan Project that everybody should try to get if they're going to do DNA testing, or just to figure out how you might be related to somebody. So here it breaks down the possibilities of 1,915 centimorgans and the relationships that it might be. And there is a low range, a high range of centimorgans to fall into that category, and an average number of centimorgans. So as you can see, sibling is within the range of 1915, but it's a little too low, and it didn't make sense. So you have to do your research to figure that out. And this is the full chart showing you all the relationships that are possible based on the amount of centimorgans. And as you can see, once you get down to, let's say, second cousin twice removed over here, there is a possibility that you will not share any DNA with that person. But the average is about 71 and the high is about 244. So there is a chance that if you do a DNA test and you find somebody that's a second cousin twice removed or 3 times removed, you might find that they do not share any DNA with you on the DNA match list. And that goes for all the further away relationships on this side as well, and some of the half relationships as well. And you can always find that chart online. Google it. It's called the Shared Centimorgan Project. So the first company I'm going to cover today is called Ancestry DNA. It's based in the United States in Utah. What they will show you or give you when you DNA test with them are going to be the percentages of your ethnicity estimate and regions, which are estimates based on your family and where they might have come from over the last 300 to 400 years. Some say 500 years, but I try to be conservative. It'll help you identify other relatives who have also taken the Ancestry DNA's DNA test. It'll show you a match list of people you are DNA related to you, from the highest, 3,400 centimorgans or so, down to 10 centimorgans. It'll help you build a family tree because they have a very good tree building site on Ancestry through their subscription. The DNA collection type is saliva, and it is an autosomal DNA testing only. They do not do Y or mitochondrial DNA testing. The time to the result is 6 to 8 weeks, and they charge about $99 to do the DNA test. That is separate from the subscription that Ancestry has for research and other things. They do have sales, keep an eye out for them. I do post the sales on my Facebook group, which I'll talk to you about later. So Ancestry.com current price list, they did not change this recently, so I believe this is still correct. If somebody knows different, let me know. The US edition, this is for the subscription for you to use their tools that they have on their site, besides the DNA testing, which is separate. You don't have to DNA test with them to use the tools they have for genealogy, including family tree building and researching your family, which are two of the major parts of genealogy, of course. So they charge $25 a month for the US and $39.99 for the World Explorer, and they give you full access to full membership, including Fold 3 for military documents and newspapers.com basic for newspapers, helping you with obituaries, marriage announcements, birth announcements, to help you in your genealogy, and lots of other things that'll help you. And you could save a little money if you're going to use it for a 6-month subscription. If you're not using a subscription to anything, cancel it, resubscribe when you're more ready to use it. Like even like a gym membership, right? I mean, that's the biggest thing that people use, spend money on, and don't use sometimes. So when you get your DNA results from Ancestry after 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how busy they are, you're going to get a DNA match list. It's going to show you the people who you are DNA related to. Obviously, these are my top 3 matches at this time. I didn't expand it too much because I can't show you all the 85,000 DNA matches I have. So it'll show you a picture if you wish to put a picture in, or if the person put a picture in and they are sharing it where the silhouette is, it'll give you their name, an alias, or their initials, depending on what they decide to use. It'll tell you a range of possibility of how they're related to you. The only one that Ancestry can tell you without a doubt how you're related based on centimorgans is parent-child match. 3,464 centimorgans will only make us a parent-child, and I did mark it myself, at this being my daughter, and we are related, obviously, on both sides of the family, of my family. It'll let us know if she has a public tree, a private tree, and whether that tree has a linked DNA test to it. If it says public linked tree, it means it is open for people to look at, except for living people, which will be marked private, unless the person shares it with you directly. If you find a tree on Ancestry and it shows living people, they shared it with you. Living people will only come up as private. If it is private, marked private, you will have to contact the person through the messaging system in order for them to unlock the tree for you. It'll tell you based on your tree, if you have a common ancestor, which obviously my daughter and I will have. It'll allow you to view the match to give you more information on how you're related and other great tools. You can star the match, and as you can see on my close family, which is marked close family to first cousin, that I highlighted them with different colors for each side of the family. My sister Linda is on my father's side, paternally matched, is magenta, and Susan is yellow on my maternal side. And it shows how many centimorgans and the percentage of shared DNA. Before, it didn't show the percentage. It only showed centimorgans, which you can change over with DNA Painter at any time. You can also filter out how your matches are sorted and how to look for certain groups, how much DNA you share with the person, whether you have common ancestors, whether they have been unviewed, meaning you have not looked at that match, whether you have messaged them or made notes about them, and if they have trees. So there's a good way of sorting all your matches based on what you're looking for. And that's going to help you scroll through a lot of matches at one time if you need to. So from Ancestry and all the other DNA testing companies, they're going to give you what's called ethnicity estimates. Ethnicity results are only estimates, and the DNA testing companies using data from people who have tested with them will get a benchmark of patterns in your DNA of your ethnicity from the patterns. You also receive ethnicity results based on where your ancestors and the ancestors of your DNA matches have come from over the years. Migration formed the basis of all ethnicity since we all come from somewhere else. My ancestors come from mostly Eastern Europe, France, Germany, and Belgium. Based on my DNA matches, I found that my maternal side came mostly from Russia, Hungary, and Latvia, though most of the areas have changed country ownership or control over the centuries. My paternal side came mostly from Belgium, France, and Germany. I also have a little Scandinavian ethnicity. When you get your results, you're going to get your ethnicity estimates, and it's going to show you the percentage of DNA that you share from a group of people depending on where the family lived over the years. As you can see, it says I'm 51% European Jewish. They used to mark that as Ashkenazi Jewish because that's the region where the Ashkenazi Jews come from. That area is known historically for Jews being separated from the rest of populations in areas called the Pale of Settlement, the Warsaw Ghetto, and areas of that nature. It means that my family from that area lived there for a very, very long time without moving. Then the other side of my family is mostly England, Northwestern Europe, including Belgium, Germany, and then a little bit from Russia and more of an Eastern Europe instead of the Western and Central Europe. And it'll give you a percentage breakdown for any other region that you might show up in your ethnicity estimates. They also give you a timeline based on migration patterns of your family and who some of your DNA matches might be related to based on where they lived in the migration pattern. So they give you a timeline based on your results. Mine goes from 1825 down to 1925, and you can click on each one to show you different possible DNA matches and where their family came from over the years to learn more about your family. They give you a very nice DNA story based on your DNA relationship to your ethnicity. On Ancestry, through subscription and a free account, you can build family trees. Most of the DNA testing companies I will mention do not build a family tree for you from your DNA matches. Your DNA matches and how they are related to you are estimated based on the amount of DNA you share with them. You must build a family tree and place your matches in the correct places in order to understand the true relationship you share with your DNA matches. 23andMe does start a family tree for you based on the amount of DNA you share with the matches you will find, but they will only be truly correct if you do the research to find out how they should be placed in the family tree correctly. So this is a picture of the Ancestry DNA tree that I created for my biological family. This is called an extended view, and you could put anybody in the family tree you wish, your in-laws and your step family, along with aunts, uncles, cousins, and so on. It's your tree, build it as you wish, okay? I did cover up the name of some of the living family members because this is my true account, not one I grabbed that would show private for the living people. So I covered them just for privacy. So you can see the hierarchy. They have a very square look to it, but I want to show you something else. This is what the new Ancestry family trees look like. They updated recently and they changed it a little bit. I like it. Some people have issues with it that I've seen on posts on Facebook, but I think it looks nice. It's very similar to the old one, except they changed the font, they changed some of the colors, they changed the image of the silhouettes that you see. They are very angular. They have very sharp familial lines. It does show you who your family members are, and you need to put the person in the right position in order to understand how they're related to you. But this is what the new extended family tree looks like. Ancestry DNA and their subscription also have availability for you to do research on your family. They now have over 60 billion records in the Ancestry database. If you subscribe, which is easier than the free account, but you can get a free account or use the library edition that most libraries do have to help you learn about researching and doing research on your family to help you understand how they should be in the tree. So they have two search bar windows, one for first, middle name, and last name, places your ancestor might have lived, and their birth year, which you can adjust to exact birth year, plus or minus 1, 2, 3, 5, and 10 years, depending on your knowledge. They have a gender button, which you should try to make sure you click, so it'll help you filter out the males from the females. And then you can add in any information that you have that might help you filter out and get less search results. The more search results you get, the more you have to go through. You can limit your search results by historical records, stories and publications, family trees, and photos and maps by clicking or unclicking the green buttons at the bottom. You can look directly for special collections they have, including birth, marriage, death, census and voter lists, immigration and travel, and so on. And they have buttons, links right to recently viewed collections that you might have already worked on to help you go right back to that spot. You can also filter out your DNA, your search criteria based on where the person might have lived, the country and the state, all broken down by state on this chart, on this page that you can easily click to. And the top collections, the 1940, 1930, and the US city directories. And some more of the direct links to certain documents that you can look for to help you understand more about your family. And like I said, the three things you really need to know about genealogy are family trees, researching, and DNA matching. So 23andMe is the next company I'm going to cover. They are US based in California. They say that they have 2,000 regions of ancestry reports telling you that their total of geographic regions that they're going to show you. They have 50 reports when you sign up with 23andMe with the DNA testing, including the haplogroups, which are your very, very distant relatives and how their migration patterns built their haplogroups, which is a little bit of the Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA to give you the haplogroups, and Neanderthal ancestry, which I don't find very useful in genealogy. It's a great idea to just see, but it's not going to help you in your genealogy, knowing whether you have a percentage of Neanderthal ancestry. You will have a DNA relative finder, which is their match list. It is a saliva collection type, and the results will come in within 4 to 6 weeks. It'll help you find and connect with relatives in the 23andMe database who share DNA with you. They will automatically start a family tree for you based on your DNA matches, and there is no subscription cost. The tools are free after you DNA test. So their current pricing is $99 for their autosomal DNA test, which do provide a little bit of the Y-DNA and mitochondrial DNA, but very little. You can do a health and ancestry, which gives you information about your health, possible gene variations or abnormalities that might help you. I don't rely on them for my health. I go to my doctor if I need a DNA test to help me with BRCA1 or BRCA2 that might run in my family. I go that route instead of through a DNA testing company, but that's always up to you. And they do have a subscription now to only receive an additional 3,500 DNA matches, which I have not done yet myself. I might one day decide to spend the money and pay for a year and look to see if it helps me in some way. But at the point for myself, it's not necessary. You can always decide if you want to spend the money to do it. If you're not using it, cancel it. So getting ethnicity results from 23andMe is a little different than Ancestry because they have a lot more regions that they are using to pinpoint where your family might have come from. So they're a little tighter in the geographic globe, okay? So this one actually says Ashkenazi Jewish instead of European Jewish, and it shows approximately the same amount of DNA that I got from that region from Ancestry, 50.4 opposed to 51%, which is very close. But it does highlight certain areas that Ancestry didn't. They pinpointed my family coming from certain regions and cities, which is very tight. very tight and narrow point. For instance, French and Germany, 18.9%, Flanders, Belgium, which is just an area within Belgium, and North Rhine-Westphalia area of Germany, including Greater London in the United Kingdom. Now that's very, very tight. Greater London is not a very big area. So for them to pinpoint that some of my family might have come from this region is very interesting. It also does show the smaller percentages as it gets smaller and smaller, including 8.1% of Eastern Europe, including parts of Poland and parts of the Ukraine, which again changed ownership and area control over the centuries, including Russia, Poland, Austria, Hungary. So when you're doing research on your family and it says your relative came from Poland, always look for the region they might have come from in Poland. They might have been Russian at one time or Ukrainian at one time. So their documentation might have different things. So always keep that in mind as well. So you also do get a family tree with 23andMe that they start for you based on your DNA matches. And those are going to be the ones that are highlighted with the little symbol above the name. And as you can see, theirs is more rounded. They have round spots for the persons in your tree and more rounded familial lines. And JH shouldn't really be attributed to Michael and Bella, but she is a child of John and Bella. She is my maternal half sister, but she is not Michael's child. She is John's child. So when you get your family tree from 23andMe based on the matches, you want to check it and make sure that any information you have correspond with what they might have and adjust it, which you can do based on the tree that they built for you, okay? So you can put pictures in there. Ancestry on each of the family tree person, I'm going to get back to that. I'll go back to that later. But there is no place for you to put data or information about your DNA matches or your family tree entries that you put in on 23andMe to add information about the person. They do not have like a profile page like Ancestry does. So that's one of the things I like about Ancestry. You can store information on each person on your family tree. So this is my DNA match list for some of the top matches I have on 23andMe. I did test with them along with Ancestry because I'm an adoptee and I wanted to put as many eggs in as many baskets as possible to find as many DNA matches as I could to help me understand my biological family. Again, they do have a search that you can search for DNA matches on your list by name, location, notes, and lots of other things. You can filter out by mother's side and father's side and where family were born based on the information that's in the database on the DNA matches. You can tell it exactly how you are related to the person. You will see initials and the name, aliases, or their full name or initials on their name. It'll tell you how you might be related to them. It'll also tell you the amount of DNA that you share with them in percentage. If you click on each person, it'll also tell you in centimorgans. Or you can use DNA Painter to plug in the amount of percentage to tell you how many centimorgans and vice versa. You can put in centimorgans and it'll tell you the percentage that you share instead. There is a formula to figure it out between centimorgans and percentage of DNA, but it's a little complicated. It's easier just to use something that helps you do it easily. So MyHeritage DNA is another company that I wanted to go over because it is one of the biggest ones now as well. They are based in Israel, which helps us understand why more people use it in other countries than the United States. More of my DNA matches, which I didn't test with MyHeritage, but more of my DNA matches on MyHeritage are from outside of the United States. And I'll show you my tree and my matches in a moment. I didn't test with MyHeritage. I moved my DNA data from Ancestry to MyHeritage, which you're allowed to do for free. And I will show you how I did that as well. So they have over 100 million users and 9.6 billion historical records Ancestry still has a lot more than MyHeritage, and they will help you uncover the geographic and ethnic origins of your ancestors in an ethnicity estimate. It'll help you find long lost relatives. And I pull this from their site, how they worded it. But this is just your match list, okay? You can build a family tree on MyHeritage, and it is helpful to know that it's available in over 40 languages. Another reason why a lot of people outside of the United States and the other English-speaking countries like England and Australia use MyHeritage. It is a cheek swab collection type. Results are about 3 to 4 weeks, and it is an autosomal DNA test. They only show 42 regions of ethnicity, opposed to 23andMe's 2,000 areas of ethnicity and regions in the globe. So the current pricing that they have at Ancestry are $129 a year, and the first year being $89 for a premium account that helps you build an enhanced family tree of up to 2,500 people. And then you can upgrade to Plus, which is $209 a year, first year being $149 with unlimited tree building capabilities. And you can see what they give you. You need to go on their site to click on each one, instant discoveries, tree consistency checker. So it might help you understand errors that you might have in your tree when you build it on their site. But there are other sites for free that you can use to check your tree. So for all access to historical records, not giving you any DNA matches and only a tree of 250 people, they charge you $189 a year, and first year $129. And then they have the ultimate package that gives you everything for $299 a year, first year being $199. So you can see it can get very expensive depending on what you want to use. It all depends on what your need and how deep into genealogy you're doing and whether you're going to use the product fully. If you're not using it fully and taking advantage of what you're paying for, always cancel and resubscribe. I'm going to say that a million times. So I moved my DNA match list, my DNA data from Ancestry account as a DNA data file to MyHeritage. And they're going to give me, they gave me over 25,000 DNA matches. These are just a few of my top ones. I did move my daughter's DNA over to MyHeritage to see the percentage and the amount of centimorgans we share, and to learn more about using the system. So what you're going to find in your DNA matches at MyHeritage are, again, going to be a picture or the silhouette. It'll give you their name, alias, or initials, depending on how they put it in the system. MyHeritage tells you their approximate age in decades. They could be in their teens, their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. And it tells you where they hail from, what country. So as you can see, my two matches that I'm showing are from the United States, but I do have a lot of matches from outside of the United States on MyHeritage because of where the company is based and who is using which program, which system. It'll give you an estimated estimate of their relationship that you share with the person. I did put in that she is my daughter, but again, DNA testing companies will tell you only for a fact if it is a child-parent match. Obviously, I'm in my 50s. MyHeritage knows that. They also know that this is a female and she is in her 20s. The only possibility could be a daughter match. They do show you both percentage and centimorgans. They also show you how many segments you share DNA with the person and what the largest segment amount is. So I have one of my segments with my daughter. The largest is 217 centimorgans. It'll tell you whether they have a tree, and you can review the DNA match and view the tree of the person if you are a subscriber to the site. If you are not paying for MyHeritage, they will not allow you to see the person's tree or do much research. You can do a little, but not much. And then, as you can see, the second match tells me that she is in her 40s from the United States and that she is estimated to be a first cousin once removed to second cousin, based on the amount of percentage and centimorgans we share. They'll also give you your ethnicity estimates if you move your DNA data over. This is an updated version. Before they had less regions, and they gave you a much smaller map. It does show that I am 48.1% Ashkenazi Jewish, which is very close to the other two. And it also shows that I am partly from Flemish in Belgium, which is Flanders and Brussels. So they're getting a little tighter than they used to. And also Netherlands and France. So they're giving me regions, tighter regions of the areas of where my family came from, which is very useful when you're doing genealogy to know where your family came from, obviously. It'll show you again a map. It'll highlight the areas that you come from, your family comes from over the years, color coded, so that you can click on each one and bring up more information about where the family is from. MyHeritage has a piece of software that they allow you to use as a member, or and for free. I believe I can use it for free, called the Chromosome Browser, which is a genetic genealogy tool that lets you understand how one person is related to another person based on the segments of DNA you share. This is a little more scientific, in-depth scientifically in your DNA matches, but I just wanted to highlight one of the features that this company has that others might not have, like Ancestry. So you can view up to 7 DNA matches to see where the segments of DNA that you share lie on the chromosomes and whether they overlap. It's called triangulation. You will be able to see where the DNA segments fall on the map of your chromosomes. So here I'm only showing the first 9 of 23 chromosomes, the 23rd being the sex chromosome. And as you can see, this is my daughter in red, my cousin Kimberly that I showed on the other page in yellow, and myself in gray. And it shows you where all the DNA segments and where we share the DNA on each chromosome. So obviously I'm going to share a lot of DNA with my daughter. 50% of my DNA is shared with my daughter. So there's going to be a lot of red, obviously. And if you watch Long Lost Family with Henry Louis Gates Jr., he's showing the DNA chromosomes to somebody in the show, how much red is on the page? Okay, how much red is in these chromosomes? A lot. Then it shows my first cousin once removed is the relationship I share with Kimberly, and where the DNA segments fall and how they match up with me and my daughter. So as you can see, we're obviously all related based on these segments of DNA on each chromosome. If I add another person into this mix that is not showing segments matching between Kimberly and them and me, I will know they are not related to Kimberly. Okay, if I add somebody in and it does show sections of segments of DNA that we might share between us all, it'll mean that she is related to Kimberly on her side of the family. So it might help me understand how the person is related to Kimberly and myself. So Family Tree DNA, FTDNA, is based in Houston in the United States. Again, it'll show you a breakdown of ethnicities that contributed to your genes, an ethnicity estimate. You will see how your DNA compares to ancient dig sites of archaeological dig sites of ancient populations. Really neat, very cool. Not helpful in genealogy on how we do it now anyway. Is it great to know that they dug up some bones and that you might be related to somebody from 1400s or before by the archaeological dig sites? Yes, but it's not going to really help you all that much. FTDNA is one of the only companies around right now that are large enough to trust to get an mtDNA test. You can get your mitochondrial DNA test analyzed, giving you specifics about your maternal side. They also have Y-DNA testing, which allow to give you insights on your paternal side. Only for males to take. Females cannot get Y-DNA testing. you do not have a Y-DNA. Their testing starts for the Y-DNA testing goes from $119 to $449. In the middle is the family ancestry, the autosomal DNA, charging $79 US currently for their autosomal DNA. They charge $119.99 as a starting price for the paternal ancestry, depending on how deep and how far back you want to go and how many markers of DNA you want to get on the paternal side, going up to $449. And the maternal ancestry is $159.99 to give you an idea of your mitochondrial DNA passed down from your mother's family. I did move my DNA data over to Family Tree DNA as well, showing me who some of my DNA matches are on that site as well. It did pick myself up, calling myself a father-son. And then I did add my half-sister just to see the comparison of the shared centimorgans, which is pretty much right on spot, 1915, 1934, 1924 is very close to what the other ones had. And again, it'll give you a relationship range. It'll also show you a picture or a silhouette, their name, initials, and so on. It'll show you the shared centimorgans. It'll show you the shared centimorgans, and it'll also show you the largest block of DNA that you share with the person. And again, you can do some filtering out by the searching a name or a surname, or whether it's paternal and maternal, and lots of other ways. And on this site, I have over 15, almost 16,000 DNA matches. Can I go through them all? Obviously not. There are just too many DNA matches in all the different sites for me to go through every one to figure out how to place them on a family tree. I will investigate based on research the ones that I need to search for. And again, you will get an ethnicity estimate map to show you the areas of where your family came from. This is not me. Because I am not a paying member, they are not showing me an ethnicity estimate map. This is somebody I pulled offline named Rebecca Lee, and I just wanted to show you how they broke down the ethnicity estimates and the map showing color coding based on where the person came from and their family over the last 300 to 400 years. So as you can see, this person has a lot of different colors all over the globe in Europe, Russia, Mongolia, China, even some Africa. So they are a bit of a mutt. So earlier I told you I didn't DNA test with every company, but I did transfer my DNA data to other sites. Ancestry.dna and 23andMe allow you to transfer your DNA from them to other sites. Ancestry and 23 do not allow you to upload to their sites. They are very proprietary. You can transfer your DNA to MyHeritage, FTDNA, and Living DNA for free. You can upload your DNA data to GEDmatch, which is an open public database that accepts DNA data from 23andMe, MyHeritage, Ancestry, Family Tree DNA, and Living DNA. And the results will transfer will show you a database of DNA matches across all the DNA testing companies. Since GEDmatch is an open public forum, the privacy of your data is not completely secure and can be viewed by anyone who signed up for GEDmatch. You can decide the level of privacy you wish to achieve on GEDmatch. They have a click bar. It does help you guide you through privacy. And GEDmatch was used to find the family information that ultimately led to the arrest of the Golden State Killer, who was sought for almost after 40 years. So law enforcement is using it, but you can opt out of GEDmatch's law enforcement protocols. They will show you a kit number that you will get after you sign up and move your DNA data to GEDmatch. Again, it'll show you a name, an alias, or initials based on what the person put in. It will show you their email address, which will help you contact your DNA matches. It'll show you the largest segment, the total amount of DNA that you share in centimorgans, the possible generation of the most common recent ancestor. Obviously, the first person is very close to me, so is the second, based on the generation. And the next three are fairly close based on the generational gap between us. It'll also show you the DNA testing company based on where they moved over their information, but it'll show you by kit number. Their kit letter in the beginning will show you which site they came from. A is for Ancestry, M is for 23andMe, Family Tree, DNA starts with T, and MyHeritage starts with H. There are a few others, as you can see, there is a Z, but they are very infrequently used, so I'm not going to cover them. So DNA testing is very fun. It's an exciting way to learn more about your family's history and finding new family members. All of the companies I discussed are for-profit companies. I do not work for any of the companies, nor do I recommend one over another for just information. If you have a specific case that you are interested in looking at, I might be able to suggest one that might be better for you. I do recommend that you do your own research to decide which company will best suit you and your family research. Each company uses their own algorithm or formula to decipher the DNA you provide to them, so each may have slightly different ethnicity results. Consider each company's costs, features, and privacy options best for you. And remember, do not pay for subscriptions to companies if you are not using them. So looking for my DNA relatives for biological reasons because I'm an adoptee isn't only for knowing who they are on pieces of paper on a family tree, but I want to meet them. So on one side is my half first cousin once removed. His father was a half sibling to my grandfather. We just call each other cousins now. I got to meet him in Titusville, Florida during my trip to Orlando. And on the other side is my sister, Linda. People must have had the wrong time or got kicked. Coming back into the presentation pretty much at the end of the thing. I will mention that at the end. And the other side is my sister, Linda. This is the picture of the first time we ever met. She was very thrilled to have a baby brother after being an only child for 60 years or so. And we got to meet in Alexandria, Virginia, and we toured the museums, monuments, and memorials of our nation's capital while we were down there. So we had a great time, and her and I have a very close relationship now. And this is my, like I told all the Facebook groups I put as an event on their sites that I don't really promote my business. I do give you my contact information if you wish to get in touch with me. Here it is, my phone number, my email address, my webpage, my Twitter account, which I don't really use all that much. I do have a Facebook group called It's All Relative Genealogy. If you wish to join, I automatically allow you to join. I post when I'm going to have other presentations, fun, cool stuff about genealogy, and when DNA testing companies might be having sales for subscriptions and DNA testing. So keep that in mind if you want to join my Facebook group. And you can also look at It's All Relative Genealogy Research, which is my Facebook webpage. I will stop the sharing. Sometimes all that talking just gets me so winded. And I'm done, and I'm like, wow, I'm a little dizzy from all that. But I like to keep it flowing. I've been to presentations where the person just read everything like this. And by the time I got a quarter of the way through, I was bored. And I don't like to bore my attendees, obviously. I saw people coming in and out. If you did come in late or got kicked out for some reason, I do share the slides with the library. I do it after the fact because sometimes I do change information, like I added that new image of the Ancestry family tree page that they changed. So I don't like handing out old information. I like handing out fresh, current slides that people could use. So if anybody wants it, I'm sure the library would not have a problem emailing it to you after I send it to them. I will open up questions, discussion, anything about, it doesn't have to be about DNA testing companies. It could be on family trees, research, whatever you like. If there's anything, let's see if there's anything in the chat.
Nothing in the chat yet, but if you're shy, too shy to unmute yourself, go ahead and type questions in because I can read them out, or maybe Eric will see them. I have a question though.
Sure.
So on the one site, and I'm sorry, it's a lot of information to absorb all at once, but let's say you pick one of these testing companies and you put the information into one of these databases, and you have all these matches. Like, how do you go about figuring out which ones to try to investigate further to know, where to put them on your tree, if that question makes sense?
Makes perfect sense. Okay, when you get your DNA match list, it's going to start with the most DNA you share down to the bottom. Unless you're an adoptee, you might know some of them at the top. Even if you're an adoptee, you might actually know a few of them if they're close relatives and you've already made contact or you have information. But most of the time, a lot of the people are not going to get like a parent-child match unless you know your child DNA tested with them. But most of the time, people are going to get half siblings and down, first cousins, second cousins. Now, when you start your family tree, which should always be one of the first things you do, start a family tree somewhere, either on Ancestry or MyHeritage if you want to pay their higher prices. Ancestry is not cheap either, don't get me wrong. I mean, they charge quite a bit for their subscription cost as well, but you can get an offline software, Family Tree Maker and Roots Magic, and I usually recommend doing one online and doing one offline. If you have the time to keep up both databases, that's great. If not, you could do a little bit of time. So when you get your DNA match list, the ones you're going to want to investigate first, obviously, are going to be the highest ones that you don't know who they are. And I think my next presentation for this library is totally going to cover that. Okay. It's going to cover how to look at your DNA matches and try to figure out how to put them in the tree. And I do use one of my closer matches as an example. She is a first cousin once removed, but it pretty much follows the same steps for anybody in your DNA match list because you have to do some research. So the first persons you want to look at are going to be the ones you don't know who they are, obviously. Try to figure out if they're on your mother's side, your father's side. And then from there, figure out if they're on your grandmother's side or your grandfather's side and which, are they your maternal side, grandmother or grandfather, or your paternal side, one of the four. And then you can, depending on how far back they are, if they are fifth cousins and you go back that far, whether they are part of one of those grandparents way back. So I hope that answered your question. We'll allow Allison for the Q&A.
Yeah, hopefully next week. Make sure everyone who's interested, come back next week. I sent everybody the link. If you're here tonight, you also have a link to register for next time.
Okay.
But
I think Bob and yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, following up, I had MyHeritage this past year, okay, and they keep sending me matches, and they're from Australia and Russia and Ireland, all over the place. And these people, I would say absolutely, are no match, and they're fifth and sixth. I mean, they're sending stuff that really is useless, I think.
Okay, once you DNA test with one of the companies or one of the other companies, whichever one you use, okay, as they get information that they believe or show a certain amount of centimorgans or percentage of DNA that you share with these person, even if it goes back 6th to 8th cousin matches, okay? Now, a lot of times what happens with the algorithm is they might not be very closely matched, and more closely matched to you, they're matched to you because of the regions that the families hailed from over the centuries, okay? So there are DNA patterns that show that you are somehow related to them, and they might not be very helpful because obviously it's going to be very difficult for you to go back If they're a sixth cousin, that would mean the most common recent ancestor would be your fifth time, one of your fifth time great grandparents. And you have a lot of them because you have 4 grandparents, you have 8 great great grandparents, right? You have, and it goes and it doubles every generation, it doubles. So by the time you get to fifth, you have almost 128 different people that person can hail from. So going back that far in time is going to be very difficult for you to place that one DNA match that's a 6th to 8th cousin in the tree. It is somewhat useless for you to use 6th to 8th cousins to figure out how you're related to them. It's very tedious. The best way to do it is start your family tree. Put in your known information, your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, if you know who they are, when they were born, when they died, where they lived, when they got married. All that information can be stored on Ancestry Tree, on MyHeritage Tree, on an offline tree like Family Tree Maker. And then as you go through a DNA match list, go to your highest amount. Go to the first person you might not know who they are. And then look at their name and see if you can figure out based on surname, where they might have lived at a certain time, who they might be related to on your match list to find out who they are and which part of the family they're from. And then add them. If they're a first, second cousin, even third cousin, if you built your tree back far enough, then use them. I do not go down my list and look at 6th to 8th cousins and try to figure out how to put them in my tree. Even as an adoptee, wanting to know who everybody is, it's physically and mentally impossible to try to figure out who a 15 to 20 centimorgan match is, okay? Now, most people say the standard is 100 centimorgans. I do go below that because there is a range. There is a low range, a high range, and an average amount of centimorgans you will share with somebody. Somebody who is 100 centimorgans could be lower than they say, or closer to you than they say. Sometimes there's something called endogamy, which is where people were stuck in a certain region for a very long time, and cousins and even siblings married each other. Half siblings sometimes even full siblings married each other. Siblings married siblings. 2 brothers could have married 2 sisters from a different family, but their children are going to be, not only they're going to be cousins, they're also going to have a closer relationships, which might add to the amount of centimorgans you share with a cousin. One of the greatest stories I tell is a lot of my family on my mother's side lived in the Pale of Settlement, which was a region in Latvia, Lithuania, Poland area, parts of Russia, where the Russians shoved the Jews, pretty much made them live there most of their lives, up to 400 years. There were only so many families that they could marry into. Inevitably, cousins married cousins. I do have a helper, Conrath family, that I know based on DNA matches and family tree building that are related. It's also called Pedigree Collapse, meaning that you are going to have one possible less sets of grandparents at that level. So if they're your third cousins, you are going to have, if they are both your third cousins, you're going to have one less great grandparent set. So instead of having 16 great grandparents, you're only going to have 15. But you always have to do your research. So yes, using MyHeritage and going back and looking at 6th to 8th cousins aren't going to help you. Look at your closer matches. Try to figure out how they fit in the tree based on research. The 3 things: family trees, research, and DNA testing. They all go together. I hope that answered your question.
Yes.
I see Linda has a question.
Sure.
She researches for some in-laws, no direct biological relationship. So it's not her DNA, but she has no idea how to upload the DNA results to another group to compare the results.
Okay. If she could tell me which site she used to first DNA test, it's fairly simple. If she used Ancestry, you have to go to your DNA tab on Ancestry and go to settings, and then you will be able to see download. You'll see download DNA data. You need to download your DNA data and do what it asks you to do, including probably adding your password.
Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the relative that did the DNA testing used MyHeritage.
Okay. They
And
also,
I would like to put it in the tree I'm building for him on Ancestry, but I didn't know how, if you can do that. You can't do that?
okay, you cannot go from MyHeritage to Ancestry or
Okay.
23andMe. Ancestry and 23andMe are very proprietary.
Okay.
They don't want you putting somebody else's data on their site. You can go from Ancestry and 23andMe to the others, but not the other way around. Now, you
So
mentioned-
if he were
Mhm.
to do an ancestry test, that might produce some different results.
You're going to get different matches of DNA matches of people who tested on Ancestry and not MyHeritage. So you're going to get a very large DNA match list. If your family was, I mean, even if your family wasn't in the United States for a very long time, I generally recommend Ancestry as your first go-to. One, it has the largest following here in the United States and the other speaking Native American, English-speaking countries. Ireland, England, Australia, New Zealand. You can also move your DNA data over to other places from Ancestry, which is very helpful. Two, Ancestry has a very good tree building site. They don't charge you more for larger builds. You can build as many family trees as you wish and make it as large, each tree as large as you wish. They also have over 60 billion records to help you research. So if you sign up for an Ancestry subscription or use the free one, it's a little harder with the free one. They don't give you all the research material, and it's a little hard. You can't contact other family members that you have a match list with. And it's a little harder to build the tree. But if you do Ancestry, you can store all of the documents and research materials you found on Ancestry and other places into your Ancestry profile for each person on your family tree. So if you have a grandfather and you did research on him and you find his immigration papers and his Social Security death index and his marriage certificate, you can post it on his profile on the family tree for him. And then you can go look for it. You could do the same with MyHeritage. And you can actually move the family tree information around through something called a GEDCOM file. The DNA, the family tree building sites, not 23andMe, but MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and Ancestry will allow you to download the family tree data itself in what's called a GEDCOM file. And you can find that under the family tree, the family trees tab. You can move the GEDCOM family tree anywhere. You can move it into Ancestry, you can move it into 23andMe, they allow all that. You can also use it in DNA Painter, which I mentioned, which is a very good DNA genetic genealogy site. So check out DNA Painter. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you. You gave me some good information. Is that DNA Painter, is that a cost? Is that a subscription?
Which one?
DNA Painter.
No, there is no cost for DNA Painter. It's a free, user-friendly genetic genealogy site. They allow you to use they have what's called a Chromosome Browser as well. I believe they also have called What Are the Odds? WADO, and use the newest version. I think it's version 2. It allows you to put a family tree and people into a family tree and ask it a question like, who is this person's great-great-grandfather? And based on the information you put into the family tree, the amount of centimorgans you share, when they were born, when they died, it'll give you a hypothesis in numbers based on the possibility of who the person is. It might lead you to understand how somebody's related to somebody else. It's not the easiest thing to use. There are Facebook user groups just for Watto on DNA Painter. So always use Facebook also for information to help you understand more about DNA matches, family tree building. There are a lot of groups on Facebook. You can always just go to groups on Facebook and plug in the words you're looking for: family tree group, DNA data group, and a lot of groups will come up. Read their policy. Apparently, they didn't like that I posted this event on a cemetery and find a grave kind of group. They were called GAA Stoners. If you're a member of the group, I apologize. They took down my post because it didn't have to do with gravestones. But genealogy is all related. Let everybody be informed about every aspect of genealogy. Don't limit it to gravestones. I understand that. I understand it's their group. Okay. And that's what the group is sort of set up for. But if it's informational stuff about genealogy, gravestones and Find a Grave and legacy.com of when somebody died is all part of it all, including family trees, DNA testing, DNA Painter, Watto in DNA. Learn about every little aspect you can.
Next time, could you maybe talk about trying to print a tree? Ancestry printing is, right, yeah.
I know. There are sites online that you can use. If you move your family tree from Ancestry, which you can do, to MyHeritage, MyHeritage has family tree charts that you can download and use with a GEDCOM file. So you download your family tree on Ancestry as a GEDCOM file, put it on your desktop on your computer, then go sign up with MyHeritage. I don't know if you need a subscription to do the charts. I think you will get a watermark or a logo on the family tree chart showing MyHeritage at the bottom. But they do have charts that you can use to move your DNA data and build a chart. They have fan charts. They have
Pedigree.
Pedigree charts. Yes, pedigree charts are easy because it's only your direct line. So if you can put in a GEDCOM file to MyHeritage, and then you can print out your family tree as a pedigree chart that they have. Amazon has pedigree charts, but you have to fill them in yourself. A couple of the other sites have pedigree charts and other family. Most of them are going to be pedigree charts. There are not a lot of sites that allow you to build a tree that's an extended family tree, like showing the extended family tree on Ancestry. It's very difficult to take. Yeah. One of the things you can do on Ancestry on your computer is you can highlight a certain area on your screen of your family tree, and then you can take a screenshot. Okay, and then you can screenshot certain sections of your tree, and if you line it up right, you might be able to paste some of them together. I know it's not easy. If you do a pedigree, moving it over to another site with a GEDCOM file makes it a lot easier. One of the programs, I don't know if I did this program for this library yet, but I do have family tree building, building and understanding family trees, which covers family tree charts that you can get from several different sites. Building the family tree, how to help research the family tree by looking for information to help you build the family tree, like an obituary that I have found for a great grandfather that lists all his daughters and sons' names. The daughters actually have their married names, which allows me to look for the husband of the family. It lists that he had 15 grandchildren. So I know those 8 children, 4 daughters, 4 sons, that they had 15 children in 1959 when the obit was written, and that he actually had 7 great-grandchildren, which I was not part of. They didn't add me. I wasn't born in 59. So they wouldn't have known I wasn't born yet. So I couldn't be listed. But then I know those 15 grandchildren had children of their own, which helped me build 4 generations, because the great grandfather's wife is mentioned with her maiden name, Halper. So that helps me go back to her family a little bit. So yeah, one of my programs is building and understanding family trees and how you can use an obituary and census records to build a family tree a little bit. So I hope you guys, I mean, if anybody has any more questions, I know a couple of people came in late. Judy, Yvette, if you can hear me, I do present this program several different times for different libraries throughout the year as they hire me to present the program. So if you missed it, or if you want the slides, you can always, ask the library for the slides and it might be helpful. She's recording it. I'm sure you guys are putting it on the cloud, and then, or however you're doing it, you could share it for a month, try to edit it. I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to include this, you can. I don't have
I
a
think
problem.
this part's great. And yes, I put it on YouTube for a short amount of time and then it'll be private. So I'll share it out either later tonight or possibly tomorrow. It depends how long it takes to process.
Right.
But I'll send you a link and make sure you watch it fairly soon so you don't forget, because at a certain point you won't be able to see it anymore.
So, I mean, like I said, genealogy really involves family trees first. Researching the family you know about and people you find on DNA match lists, or anybody you find doing research. Use one person on your family tree or your DNA match list as a stepping stone to the next person. Each DNA testing company has its pluses and minuses. Like Ancestry has very good family tree building and research and storing information on each person's profile. 23andMe has very good genetic genealogy tools. Like, for instance, 23andMe will let me know how one match is related to another match based on the amount of centimorgans they share. It's an estimate, but it'll tell me that this person is my niece, but it's this other person's second cousin, so that I can sort of know how we might be related to each other. Ancestry doesn't have a chromosome browser like 23andMe and MyHeritage does. So there are pluses and minuses. So if you can move your DNA data, it's helpful if you want to find more matches. But remember, genealogy is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to do too much at one time. I've fallen down that rabbit hole where 10 hours go by and I'm still looking at the same family line and not getting anywhere, but just clicking around like crazy. Stop, take a breather, have a cup of coffee, come back tomorrow. You know what I mean? Something might click. Reaching out to your DNA matches is great. A lot of people get these DNA match kits for DNA kits for the holidays. And a lot of people are not really interested in genealogy. They get it as a gift. Wow, this is cool. Oh, wow, I'm Irish, I'm Scottish, I'm English. Okay, goodbye. They don't look back at their DNA match list. They don't see who their matches and relatives are. They'll get a message from somebody and answer them a year later. You don't know what's going to happen. And I also tell everybody in these presentations that DNA is like fishing. Genealogy is like fishing. If it was so easy, they would call fishing catching. Okay? So it's a step-by-step process. Use one family tree member to find information about another family tree member. Use one DNA match to find information on another DNA match. You have to research. Don't automatically go by somebody else's family tree on Ancestry. They could be wrong. If they don't have any data or documentation on that person that you find on their family tree, do your own research. If you use their information directly, you might be adding wrong information to your family tree. Then what happens? The next person that goes to look at it, for instance, me, is going to say, oh, this might be my second time great grandparent, but they only have family trees listed as their data. It might be wrong. I'm going to go and look this person up. When does it say she was born? When does it say she died? What kind of documentation does it have? When was she married? When was her first child baptized? When was her first child born? How many children did she have? Where was she living? Was she living in Chicago in 1927? Okay, that's when my biological mother was born. Could this be her mother? Meaning, is that my grandmother? Right? Things need to make sense. There are places online that you can look up that will help you look up Family Tree Checker on Google, and it'll give you places that are for free that you could plug your tree into as a GEDCOMP file. And it'll tell you, hey, that possibly can't be this person's child because the person that had this child was dead before the child was born, right? This person can't possibly be this person's parent. This person was living based on your tree, was living in Russia, but the child was born in Ireland. So, like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Do a little bit at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. I tell everybody that. My clients sometimes want answers right away. And I tell them, I am working on it. I constantly look at your information, your tree. And when I do work for you, I open my software called Clockify, which I use to attribute time to the work I'm doing for your case. And then I send you a report. When I worked on it, how long I worked on it. Why did I stop after 15 minutes? Because we haven't spoken in a while. You don't have any updates on your end. And I don't expect my clients for me to do, I mean, I like to do all the work myself, but my clients do work on their own. They'll come along and say, you know what? Someone came to me recently after a year of work. Oh, do you know I have a half sister? Really? Now, a year later, you tell me you have a half sister or two? What are their names? Where do they live? Who are their parents? Which parent do you share? Let me add it to the tree. I'll do some research and then I'll hit Clockify and say, okay, I'm working on this. But if you wait, I mean, I just got hired by a second lawyer from the same firm that just hired me before. But there's a woman, she has Alzheimer's, she has dementia. She doesn't either have any children that are taking care of her. She's a ward of the lawyer. The lawyer is handling her estate. She's not dead yet. Build her tree. We want to know who everybody is. When she dies, we know who to give her money to. Makes sense. You know, they know I'm good or else I wouldn't be hired by my third lawyer now. It's good income. But like I said, I can't, I charge $35 an hour for with a 6-hour minimum, okay, which is very cheap for genealogists these days. Some charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and they still can't guarantee you what they're going to find because there is no guarantee. My retainer with my lawyer says they hold me harmless for finding information. Why? Because you don't know. But somebody will say, oh, 6 hours are done. Let's see what he found. I can't do 6 hours straight on anybody's family tree. I might take 2 weeks to do the 6 hours or more or less, depending on what I find. If I get on a roll and I could build somebody's family tree back to great-great-grandparent with all their siblings and all the cousins, and that's what they're looking for me to do, fine. I had one person contact me, said, my mother was adopted. I believe for some reasons that she is a relative of some sort to Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president. Okay, fine. I build a family tree for him. I build a family tree for Woodrow Wilson to see if there are any matches between the two. Will your mother do a DNA test? That'll be the best way. I will see right away if there are matches between the two families and where she might land. No, she won't, but I will. Great. You do an ancestry DNA test, and then I will separate out your mother's side from your father's side, which makes it a little more difficult, but I can do it. I send them a kit. I build the 2 trees. I get back I go back 4 generations. I don't find any matches. Okay, does that mean they're not related? No. It just means I didn't find enough information yet. What happens? He never answers me. Where's your DNA test? Ancestry never got it. Are you going to do the DNA test? Yes, I sent it in. Again, weeks go by, months go by. Ancestry never gets the test. I sent him a letter saying I contacted Ancestry and I had them your kit because it was never used. They send me a new kit because it was never used for free because I already paid for one kit. I send them a letter. I will continue building the family tree as best I can based on the information you gave me, but without the DNA test, it's going to be a lot harder for me to find a common ancestor. It could go back 6 generations. But if I find DNA matching cousins that match between the 2 families, I will know. And then I'll write you a report. Your mother is 2nd or 3rd cousin to Woodrow Wilson's 4th cousin. So they are 6th cousins once removed. They are 2nd cousins 4 times removed, however the relationship might be. But without that DNA test or him contacting me, I mean, God forbid, look, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not angry with him. He could have got COVID. Someone from his family might have got COVID. He might be very busy. He might never answer me, but he never paid me for the DNA kit. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get my money back from Ancestry in a new kit. But that's how it goes sometimes. You never know what you're going to find. You never know how deep you can go into the rabbit hole of somebody's case. I write a report. I say, this is what I found. This is what I didn't find. This is where we might find more information if you wish to add more time to your case, period. I no pressure, you know, I can only handle so many cases at one time. You know what I mean? I have 2 lawyers. I have 3 private clients. I do anywhere between 8 and 12 presentations a month. Of course, I'd like more of them because they don't take a lot of time and they pay the bills, but you know, I take what I can get. You know, a lot of libraries are dealing with budgets and they're dealing with how many programs they're going to put into place and what they're paying for. A lot of them don't have any budget at all. You know, I do what I can, but I appreciate the Macedon Library. You guys are upstate New York near Rochester, right?
Yes, yep.
Oh my God, you guys are frozen. Oh my God, I feel bad
Yeah,
for you.
it's cold.
My son lives in West Seneca, if you guys know where that is,
Yeah,
near
I
Buffalo.
do.
So he told me about the snow they got and how cold it is. And you get, even in winter with the lake effect snow, if the water's still a little warm and that cold air blows over. My stepson, Derek, went to Alfred University, which if you guys know where Alfred, New York is, middle of nowhere, nothing there but the university, they get slammed. Right? They can get 70, 80 inches a season because of the South towns. Who needs it? We're supposed to get a little snow tonight to tomorrow into Saturday, but they downgraded it from like 6 to 12 inches to 1 to 2 inches.
Yeah.
Thank God.
It's better.
Yeah.
By
Gotta
any
keep an eye out
chance-
on that nor'easter they keep talking about.
Yeah, it's going to stay out more to the ocean. So in Jersey,
Oh,
I'm going to
good.
get hit less.
That was my next thing to do tonight, check on that. So thank you for the
Massachusetts,
update.
Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine are going to get slammed.
Good.
Eric,
Well,
by
I'm
any
sorry for
chance,
them.
you know, Philip, or knew of a Nelson Migdal?
The Migdal family goes back pretty far.
Okay.
I have found relatives that believe they're related to the Migdal family through one of my family's relatives. They will not be DNA related to me. I was not biologically born a Migdal, nor was my father who raised me. He is also adopted. So me and my adopted father are not biologically related to the Migdal family.
Okay.
But I do have part of my Migdal family online on Ancestry. So you can always look. Now, I mean, the name doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah.
Nelson Migdal, there are so many. I mean, it's not the most common name, but it's not the most uncommon name within the Ashkenazi Jewish family. So there are hundreds of thousands of us Migdals, which is cool. But
Well, this was
And-
great. I thoroughly enjoy it. I started this when I retired, which is a good thing, because if I hadn't, I would have been fired.
Yeah, you could take a lot of time doing this
Yes.
and not get any sleep and go into work like a crazed idiot, thinking
Yeah.
about your third cousin twice
Yeah.
removed on your father's grandmother's father's side. I drive my wife crazy sometimes because I'll start telling her a story about my family. And
She could care less.
no, I mean, she does, don't get me wrong, she does care, but once I get into that third cousin twice removed, and I go on about it, we can get lost. So like I said, one step at a time. Look at one family line, go up that line. If you guys watch Long Lost Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr., I like to tell this story because people don't understand sometimes. Even genealogists don't understand sometimes. People are doing it regularly. For every generation, you double the amount of grandparents you have. That is only your direct pedigree line. When you get to your 10th generation from you, you have 1,024 sets of grandparents. Okay, that's only 10 generations. So that's like about 200 to 250 years ago. When you get to 20 generations, you have over 1 million sets of great grandparents to look at. When Henry Louis Gates Jr. does his thing for an actress or a politician or whoever he's working on, and he says he follows one line and he jumps right from this person to their third great grandparent, it is only one of many. They can't possibly go through everybody's, when they give them that family tree,
Yeah.
the tree of life at the end of the show, it only shows the lines of family that they were able to look for and find. They find a lot, but they're only going to put on television that's things that are interesting, that follows the storyline for the person. The most recent one showed a set of children of a person standing in front of a gravestone.
Oh, it was on.
Which was in Yiddish, which was in Hebrew. And they translated it to read that he was a rabbi. On one of the groups I joined in on has a huge thread where it says this Hebrew does not say directly he was a rabbi, that he was a teacher and a master, but not necessarily a rabbi, because then the Hebrew would have been written differently. Now, is that completely correct? Are these people correct and them wrong? Not necessarily, because a lot of people will translate teacher and master as him being a rabbi, because that's what rabbis do. So is it very important going back to third great grandparent? Not necessarily. Is it great to know that he might have been a rabbi or a master or a teacher and not a rabbi? Yeah, great. Like knowing whether you have Neanderthal ancestry, whether you have DNA showing from an archaeological dig site. Is it cool? Yeah. I found information about an adopted uncle named Nat Migdal. Now I knew it, but I looked it up anyway. He on his Social Security death index is listed as Nat Migdal and Michael Dale. Okay. Now, why would you see something like that? I never knew him as Michael Dale. Who's Michael Dale? You look him up, research him. He was a movie actor. His stage name was Michael Dale. He's known for several movies, and I went to IMDb, International Data Movie Base, which is a wiki page for movies, television, and all that. You do your research. You never know what you're going to find. If you find a document that shows a witness at the bottom, I go over this in different, you guys are hanging out, I'll discuss it. At the bottom of documents, like immigration records, marriage licenses, there's usually a witness. Who is that person? It could be a guy they pulled off the street. Look, we want to get married, we need a witness, and might have no relation. But you have to know who these people are. You never know who that person could be. On one of the documents, I found a name, Sarah Spivak. None of the names on the document were the same as Spivak. But why was she listing as the same address as one of my mother's father. Who is this person? Research it. It turns out it is my grandmother's sister. With what? A maiden name. Next step, who are her parents? Who's Spivak? Then I learned that Spivak was shortened from Lebitzik, their original name in Russia, from the mid to late 1800s, okay, when they were born. The name changes. You have to learn how to do name changes and understand where the name might have come from. What's the dialect? Is Spivak a shortened name? Is Lebitzik from a certain region? Like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You got to do a little bit at a time.
I gotta ask, how do you get Spivak out of
Lebitzik.
Lebit?
Lebitzik. Yeah. I don't know. I have a DNA match. His name is Jack Moss. What was his original family name? It could have been one of four things: Moskowitz, Moskowitz, Moskowitz. There's four different spellings of that family name, and I can't find how he's related to me, because I believe there was an adoption involved, because I do not have a lot of DNA matches named Moskowitz. The ones I do have family trees with very little Moskowitz in it. That tells me there was an adoption or a family name change. Yes, they changed it to Moss. Some of them changed it to Moss. Some kept it Moskowitz. My mother has a family member living in France. He was a Lebitzik. His name is now Dna. Okay, male line. Why? Lebitzik is very Yiddish sounding, very Hebrew sounding. He lives in France. What happened in the 1940s in France? The Germans marched in and started killing the Jews.
Right.
You don't want to be a Lebitzik. You'd rather be a Dna, right? I had a story my mom told me. One of her family members, she said it was her mother, but I found out it really wasn't. It might have been her mother. Went to a neighbor, went into her apartment, grabbed a cross off the wall, took out anything in her house that looked anything to be Hebrew, nailed the cross on the wall. The Germans come. What you mean? I'm not Jewish. I'm Christian. Look, I have a cross. Jesus Christ is my savior. What are you going to do to save your life? What are you going to do to keep yourself from going? Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
What would you or your family do to avoid being massacred by these barbarians because someone was of a different race, a different ethnicity, a different religion? What would you do? I'd nail 100 crosses. You know what I mean?
I found out that I have relatives in Finland because when everybody went to the United States, they went to Sweden and they stayed there a while. And when they went to Finland and they stayed and they kept the name that they had kind of made up. It was someone's boyfriend's mother's maiden name.
Names are hard.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Names are hard. Documents handwritten are hard.
Oh.
Okay. Transcription isn't always correct. I have a 1920 United States Census for my maternal grandmother living on her own with 3 children, listed as married in St. Louis, Missouri. At the top of the transcription, they have a wild card for her name. They have capital F asterisk capital ER. The name is Führer, like the German name, like the German, right? That family name has been around a lot before Hitler. So a lot of people say, oh, your parents' name, your grandparents' names were Führer. I'm like, no, it was Führer, and it was Jewish long before it was used as a German word for master, right? For Adolf Hitler, the Führer. But because they couldn't read the handwriting, they put in what's an asterisk, which is called a wild card in searching. The library should know all about the wild cards, right?
Yep.
You put a wild card in, it'll help you find a name. There are lots of different wild cards. You can always Google search wildcards and it'll tell you what they are. A question mark, you can use the words and, or, and if, right? You can, but I want accountant or financial planner. Okay, so it'll give you one or the other. You can use, I want accountant and financial planner, and you will get both. If you put the name on your search bar in asterisks and quotation marks, you are going to get the full name. Quote, John Smith, end quote. It is going to find and look for John Smith, not all the Johns and not all the Smiths, which you don't want. Because if you look for John Smith and it's going to give you all the Johns and all the Smiths, you're going to be there for eternity. But if you look for John Smith in quotation marks, you're going to find. And I go over this in so many different presentations, but discussion is good. I'll share what I have on other presentations with, groups like this. And I hope everybody is listening. Nancy and Judy, you guys stayed. I'm glad you stayed because the discussion is very important. A lot of people they breeze through you gave me enough information. It was too much, but the discussion helps you understand certain things that I might not have covered.
Right.
Like
I've
I said,
always found that I learn as much, if not more, afterward in this kind of a setting than you do during the presentation.
yeah,
Well,
I can set this up with libraries without a presentation and just go over question and answers. Just do a full hour Q&A. Send me your questions. I can answer. You can send them to me beforehand in an email or to the library as an email, and then we can read them and go over them. And I can tell you what I know. I don't know everything, obviously. There are sometimes people or attendees know something that I might not have known about a web page, about a site, about new information that I didn't update. I take it all. Right? Isn't my puppy cute? I love him. I had to throw that on. I had to throw that on today. He's such a good boy. So let's wrap it up. I don't want to take too much more time. You guys were great. I love having the discussion. I could talk about genealogy for hours and hours. Help you with questions or whatever. Join my Facebook group. The page, it's all relative genealogy. Go to Facebook, go to the groups tab. There's a search bar. Put in it's all relative genealogy, and it'll come up with the group. And then it'll tell you when I'm having presentations for other libraries and different topics. I just posted something about somebody they opened up the adoptions in Ohio, and she found her biological mother after 48 years. So I just posted that today. So I post cute things. I don't post a lot because I find what happens like old web pages. If you add something new, like every couple of hours, by the time you want somebody to read something, it's 20 things down.
Yeah.
And people don't go down that far on your page to find something. They'll open up your web page or your group and they'll say, oh, this looks cool. And it's the first 5 things.
Yeah.
So every once in a while, I'll put in a joke, I'll put in a picture, I'll put in a cute story, something related to genealogy, when my presentation is going to be held, who I'm having it for, the who, when, and why, and where. The things you need to know about genealogy, the who, the when, and the where things happen. That's all you need. Huh?
Linda or Judy? Who's there?
Linda had to leave.
Oh, you are?
I'm Stacy. I'm the library.
Oh, Stacy. Okay. Tracing the Tribe, TTT. Do you
Very good.
look at that on Facebook?
I subscribe. I am a member of at least 20 different genealogy related groups, including that one.
Yeah.
I belong to GAA, which is Genealogist Addiction Anonymous, DNA Detectives. There was once that helped me called the Search Squad, but they help people looking for adoptees, looking for adoption families. There are a lot of ones related to Poland, Ireland, any kind of ethnicity, there is a genealogy group for.
Yeah.
There are
This-
groups that are outside the country. That
This TTT, I think they're branches or groups all over the place. The one I happen to be hooked up with is from Syracuse, New York, because that's where I'm from. And they've got other things, you know, other Syracuse groups, and they're all kind of tied together a little bit, and it's great. It really brings it home.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of groups that are tied together, but a lot of times they have their own administrators
They do
deciding what content they want to put on their group.
exactly.
So like the one I told you about, the Stoners group that deal with, you know, gravestones and cemeteries, didn't necessarily want me to post my event ad
Oh,
on there about DNA.
oh,
But like I said, it's all related. That's
Yeah.
why my name of my company is It's All Relative. It's
Oh.
it's all relative. Right? I mean, my wife and my half sister came up with the name, and they agreed that was a great name. There are other genealogy companies with that name though.
oh,
So I had to put LLC at the end in order for it to be legal, because other companies had that name and I wanted to stand out from everybody else. So I have, if you want, if you're if anybody's still here and interested, I don't usually ask for it, but it might be helpful to me. If you go to Google Maps,
yeah,
in the search bar, put in It's All Relative Genealogy, you will find my Google map page.
okay.
On the left, if you scroll down a little bit on the left, there's write a review.
Oh, okay.
And if you write a review about your presentation, about the presentation and what you liked about it, what you didn't like, you can even put that if you want. If you liked it and you found it helpful, write a few words, hit click. And then what it does is it helps move my main web page up on the Google list of genealogists. When people do a
Okay.
search for genealogist, instead of getting instead of getting 10 and me being 11th, I might be 8th, something like that.
Gotta tell you, this was a great presentation.
Come back next week.
Okay. Same day, same time, and
Yep.
all that? Okay.
Yep. Exactly a week at 6 p.m. And I'm doing it on how to use your DNA matches and how to add and how to understand your DNA matches.
Okay.
So I cover one of my cousins.
6 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah.
Okay, so
And
it's 3 o'clock here.
I
I'm in
sent
California.
you, if you registered for this one, when I sent the link to be able to come to this one, I sent a link to be able to register for next week's.
Okay.
So it'll
I
be
think I
there.
saw that.
Yeah, just register and then you'll get the information to be able
Right.
to attend next
Okay.
week.
And again, I'll
Great.
post next week's on as many sites that allow me to post it.
Yeah.
If they take me down, they take me down, or they ban me. What do I care?
Actually, you were on the TTT site for the Syracuse area, and I think it was Nostalgic Syracuse, or the other one was 15th Ward. But
good.
you
So
were on
somebody-
two of them at least.
So what happens is people from certain groups will share it with other groups
Right.
and share it with other people. It's all name recognition for me. If more people see my presentations, my name gets out there more. I'll get more lawyer clients. I'll get more regular clients. I'll get more presentations. It helps my business. I'm small. I'm very small.
I'm going to mention this to my brother-in-law. He's an estate attorney.
Awesome.
And he's a sole practitioner, and I don't know if he has trouble finding family members in certain instances.
I mean, a lot of times what happens with the lawyers is they get so many clients that they can't possibly do all the research themselves,
Yeah.
and they don't want to pay a guy thousands of dollars to do it. So they pay me a couple of $100, and they pay me for 6 hours at $35 an hour. And if they need more time, like one lawyer sent me $350, but she retained me for 20 hours. So if I need another 10 hours, she'll give me another $350, and then she pays me for some expenses. Newspapers.com, people finders for searching. So I mean, it's helpful, and lawyer names are good. I mean,
Yeah.
having a client as a couple of lawyers is very good for me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It really gets my name out there. Someone said you might get into the legal field doing this. You might have to go to court and testify that you found this information. I go, fine.
Yeah.
But pay me a good wage.
Pay for my plane ticket and hotel.
Right.
And meals.
Even for presentations, I have one in Ephrata, Pennsylvania says, well, if it's within the budget, we'll have you do a live presentation. So I says, okay, I'll figure out what it'll cost me in gas and tolls and food and my time, and then we'll see. So
You get paid
Thank
for
you,
doing what
guys.
you love.
thank you guys.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. See you guys
See you
next week.
See you
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.